Welcome back to the And Go podcast for our main event, the MCU. This is a BBM product brought to you by Brian, Bill, and Mike, Brian being me. For our Top 10 Tuesday, we covered what we felt was the most popular MCU movies, at least in our opinions, on the hype. Now we're going to discuss both past and present, almost like a summer Corona Scrooge Christmas story thingy. Start out, guys.
Well, I think, I guess philosophically, it's going to be interesting to see if they're going to change anything in the formula. I'm kind of interested for that. It seems like just based on the little we know about the upcoming projects, I feel like they're leaning in a little bit more to the silly and zany, which I think is going to be good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the success of Ragnarok is going to give Taika Waititi, whatever that director's name, another shot at Thor. This time, Natalie Portman's going to be doing the Thor, which I frankly don't understand how they fit that change into the series, because originally in the comic book, they made Thor unworthy, and Jane Austen, or whatever her name is, I know it's not Jane Austen,
Jane Foster.
Foster beer.
I was going to say,
Beer
of course, an
for
Australian
men.
is into a chick named Foster.
I don't know how they're going to make her Thor in this upcoming movie. Bill, you were a big fan of Ragnarok. How do you think that man can pull this off without Mjolnir being in existence?
To be honest, I have no idea where they're getting any of the plot points. As far as I knew, she was refusing to come back, and that's why they had to kill her character off in the first place, or I guess remove her. I think they didn't kill her off, but they had her.
They broke up.
They broke up, right?
Sorry about hearing that about you breaking up.
To be honest, I was a little confused that they would have her involved at all.
Yeah, that was kind of confusing to me as well. Now, first, I think it's in good hands with Taika Waititi. So I think it'll be good. And I know that it's a kind of a classic comic book thing anyway, right? We're now getting into that part in comic books where there's a lot of role reversal. Like, I think there was a frog that was Thor at one point in the comic books. I mean, not to say like, a frog it could be Thor, so why not a woman? But
You're right.
I'm just saying between that and, Sam, what's his name, being the new Captain America, there's a lot of precedent in the comic book for changing this kind of shit around.
Yeah, and I heard they might be getting into the multiverse. That might be how they're trying to pull it off. Because they explored the limits of what a single universe can do. So, go big or go home, I guess.
I mean, what are we, 23 movies deep already? They're starting to stretch any group of films, I think there's probably a couple within the universe that they could, another Guardians and a few others that they could have done the like trilogy treatment to and got away with, but I think the whole thing is kind of getting tired. I almost feel like they should have just kind of stopped or gone in a completely different direction or something, but maybe they are. I don't know.
Yeah, James Gunn is definitely back for Guardians of the Galaxy Part 3, famous for him being a Troma director who got his start from Troma, so that's quite an interesting fact. Remember Toxic Avenger? That horrible series, the person who does Andy Kaufman, or whatever the hell his name, who runs Troma Entertainment, who does the sloppy horror movies, is the one who actually discovered. I think James Gunn did Tromeo and Juliet as his first big picture.
Interesting.
I don't even know what that is. I've never heard of that.
Yeah.
It's a Troma, so basically a very violent and sexualized version of Romeo and Juliet. I haven't actually seen that one, but that's what Troma is known for. Showing off tits and doing some really cheap horror tricks. Talking about horror tricks, Doctor Strange. I hear they're going to make it almost cosmic horror. Cthulhu versus Doctor Strange, you think?
Could be interesting.
Yeah, no, I didn't realize that Sam Raimi is directing that.
Well, it would fit his wheelhouse if it is horror.
Especially since Spider-Man 2 was arguably almost a horror movie with Doc Ock. Yeah, I think Doctor Strange into the multiverse of madness will be fun. See, so I'm looking at the list here. I feel like they're gonna try to keep, the gritty stuff to like Black Widow and the Eternals, and then they'll try to get a little zany with it for Doctor Strange, and then of course Guardians and Thor. So you can always see it in the like title card that they have for some of these. You can kind of see the tone that they're trying to achieve.
Are they really called the new movie Thor? Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
It's not gonna happen. Okay. Again, that one perplexes me.
Classic Thor, we'll call him, is going to be there. I mean, Chris Hemsworth is going to be in the movie. It's called Love and Thunder, so I'm assuming it's going to be some sort of team up kind of a thing where, like you said, maybe it'll be an alternate universe Jane Foster that shows up in the current timeline, or vice versa. And that would explain why they're bringing her back, since, like Bill said, they were, she was kind of written off when she didn't want to come back. Christian Bale is going to be in that one. That's kind of exciting. I like Christian Bale.
Really? In what?
Mm-hmm. Thor: Love and Thunder as the villain.
So if they take this in a multiverse sort of route, I meant, how successful do you think they can pull this off? It doesn't seem like any of these are exceptionally exciting. We all predicted the downfall of the MCU.
Yeah, I mean, after Endgame, it's kind of, with that much build up, that much tie in to get to Endgame, where do you really go after, So I don't know. I know it's a cash cow for Disney, so they're not gonna let it die just like that. But I don't see it doing that well after Endgame.
Well, Disney sort of started losing touch with Star Wars, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Last Jedi, I think that was mixed results. Half the fan base liked it, half the fan base hated it. There was a few diehards who loved it, but and the Rise of the Skywalkers, which isn't on Disney Plus, or else I would watch it, has some weird things. I had some YouTuber actually dissect one scene, and it looked really bad. There was one scene where they reused footage twice, killing the same. What's the new Sith troopers? I mean, I don't know if he was manipulating the data, but that looked like shot. If that was in the movie, that would be really poor filmmaking.
They fly now. Yeah, some of the parts of Rise of the Skywalker were pretty flat, to be honest. I like the movie overall, but pretty flat. We don't have to get into it.
No, this is about MCU.
Oh, we talked about this already, didn't we? Yeah. Go watch our podcast talking about Rise of the Skywalker if you want our hot takes.
Yeah, but we're talking about Disney properties going into Disney hands, and what can they do with it? They don't even have Spider-Man, do they? That's still Sony, or that's a weird mess thing there.
Yeah.
Okay. It's not like that would help them. I mean, Venom seemed like an interesting movie that the guy who did Thor Ragnarok would actually sink his teeth into and make a decent Venom sequel.
I could see that. I mean, I like him as a director.
Or if they brought him in, sort of like Ant-Man and the Wasp, Spider-Man and Venom. That'd be an interesting matchup.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, just interesting that they decided to not make him a villain at all in Venom.
Thing is a cash cow, so trying to cash in with, and I guess the properties that Sony has exclusively are dwindling. So, they probably weren't bold enough to make a straight up movie where you're rooting for the villain, right? And there was they couldn't like ease into it with like a Venom being on Spider-Man first and then, doing a spin-off.
Mm-hmm.
So that's interesting.
I mean, at least it's better than Topher Grace as Venom in, what was that, Spider-Man 2, Spider-Man 3? I forget.
I think there was 3, wasn't it?
Yeah, the really bad one.
It's terrible. I mean, I could see him as Carnage, maybe.
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
But,
That skinny guy from that 70s show all grown up would make a much better Carnage than Venom.
Yeah.
Crazy, wacky character who kills people for fun.
He was a good psychopath in Predators. I don't know if you guys ever saw that one. Or whichever one it was. The one where they're on the planet with Adrian Brody.
Oh, okay, yeah. I mean, what are your all's predictions, do you think? Do you think people are going to continue to see these movies, or what?
Yeah, I think they're going to put the market in. I really don't think... Captain Marvel supposedly did good, despite Brie Larson's attitude. That's because they put a lot of marketing. I saw a lot of marketing in it. Disney puts the marketing in, they can still have something. But I think it is going to drop off slowly and surely. It'll probably become more TV. It'll probably slowly be relegated to television shows. Hell, that's probably the model now, or just streaming movies.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're saying, yeah, a lot of people like us, have the MCU superhero fatigue in our movies. And theaters in general. This coronavirus might play a factor in the streaming services just wiping out and making movie theaters decline, period. People are going to get used to getting their stuff streaming-wise.
They're already talking about AMC may never reopen.
Yeah, I heard that.
So that's a good possibility that a lot of theaters will just fold.
Side note, we should pull some money and try to rent one of these theaters and start a business. But that's a conversation for another time.
Yeah.
I do think that this is going to be... I think that they're on the decline at this point. I think it was, almost scientific the way that they kind of peaked with Endgame. And I think the writing's on the wall for them. I'm just looking at the release dates. So you got November 6th, 2020 for Black Widow. And then in 2021, you have the Eternals in February. You have Shang-Chi in May. You have then Doctor Strange in November. Oh, and also you have Spider-Man in July of 2021. So it's 4 fucking Marvel movies over the course of the year. I feel like they can see the writing on the wall and they're trying to cash in while they still can. That's kind of my hot take.
I mean, it's possible some of those were pushed from this year.
That's true too. Yeah. Don't even have a release date for Guardians 3. That seems like a long time between.
It does. Especially with the setup with Thor joining the Guardians. At least they indicate that at the end of Endgame. So.
Yeah. See, that I would watch another movie of.
Yeah, I'd watch that.
The Guardians of the Galaxy. That would probably get tired after one movie, though.
Yeah.
Be my guess. So I'm really interested to see how they handle that. I mean, honestly, it may open the door to, if DC just starts doing one decent movie a year.
if they can figure it out, right?
Yeah. What a concept.
Yeah.
Well, I think Doctor Strange and the multiverse trying to evolve the superhero model to something different, a different audience. I think that's the best bet for them, to evolve the superhero model. And next week we're planning on talking about subversion, basically superhero series that subvert the trope. So I'm not going to get too far into it, but has Marvel really had something like that? I mean, you can even argue Deadpool is sort of subverting the actual superhero trope in a cartoon, dumbest denominator way. Marvel hasn't really. Is Deadpool under the Disney Marvel bandwagon?
No.
Okay,
well,
yeah.
They own Fox now, right?
They do.
Okay. So it probably is under them now. They do have the X-Men. Maybe Disney has a shot with X-Men. That's something that we talked about hasn't been really done right. But can Disney do it right? And can Disney integrate that well with their MCU universe?
The question I think now is whether or not they'll use the current cast and try to work them in, or are they going to recast and reboot the whole thing under the Disney banner, under like the MCU banner? Because that legitimately could be a way that they could continue the MCU and renew it at the same time by just completely switching over to something like the X-Men branch of it, something they've never done before in the MCU.
Yeah, I feel like it. I almost feel like they'd have a better shot of doing animated X-Men movies that are in a completely different universe than the MCU proper. Just because, if to me, it would bring up the question of, all right, well, where have they been then? There have been all these major catastrophic events on Earth, and we haven't heard fuck all from any of the mutants, let alone the X-Men.
I mean, that's been a problem throughout most of the movies, to be honest. I mean, how many characters didn't show up in the first Avengers movie when there's aliens pouring in, through a hole in the sky into New York? There's tons of other characters there that just didn't show up. Oddly enough, including like War Machine. Where was he?
Sure.
Well, of course, the multiverse angle, if they take that route for some of these new things, like with the new Thor movie, would be a simple way to integrate, but they would need to establish the X-Men in their own movie personally.
Yeah.
Before that could even happen. So that's long down the line. X-Men movie from the list Mike pulled out, that lists out everything planned in the next 2 years, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll at least be waiting 3 years for an X-Men movie. Mm-hmm. And before it could be integrated, you would have to have that before you introduce them into whatever becomes of the MCU in 3 years. So at least 4 or 5 years before that theoretical X-Men being integrated with the rest of the MCU.
The only way that I could see that you could do it would be kind of how they did Spider-Man. You could bring in like Wolverine, because Wolverine was an Avenger later on, or at least teamed up with him quite a bit, especially during like the Spider-Man time period. So you could bring in Wolverine, introduce one character, and then run the movie like they did with Spider-Man, bringing him in during Civil War and then doing his own standalone.
Yeah, I could see that working out. I did not realize that they were going to be rebooting or doing another Blade. I'm really jazzed.
That's the weird one. That really took me by surprise, but there's really no details on that except for the name. Definitely not getting Wesley Snipes for that. Is the dude still in prison? I remember him going to prison.
Supposedly,
for something.
He was definitely sentenced for tax fraud.
Okay. I thought maybe he wasn't wearing a mask in public and they locked him. Oh, it's further back than that. Sorry. Current events mixing with previous things. Free Meek.
That was like, what, 3 years ago, 4 years ago? Anyway.
I don't know what that is.
So, I have mixed feelings about the Blade movie. I don't know.
Really?
Because I like the original. Of course, the sequels weren't much, but I thought the original, the first Blade, was really well done.
Didn't that have Ryan Reynolds in the sequel, or am I mixing him up with a different actor?
In the third one.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
Yep.
Damn, that man's been all over comic books, movies. Mm-hmm. He's a good person for it, even if people do give him shit about Green Lantern, even himself.
Yeah, that was a shame.
Yeah, it really was. I agree with you, Mike. It wasn't him. It was the movie around him.
Yes. Yeah.
Because I think he was a good choice, casting wise. But,
Yeah, but wasn't he Hal Jordan in that?
He was, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
See, that was also a bad pick. Like your favorite Green Lantern, Kyle Rayner would have fit Ryan Reynolds much better.
Totally agree with that, actually.
Mm-hmm.
I almost get the vibe that they kind of combined elements of Kyle Rayner's personality with, Hal Jordan.
I thought the same thing.
It doesn't fit, though. I mean, Hal Jordan was very straight-laced.
And even a lot of the later iterations, like in one of the animated movies that I watched, where Green Lantern is featured, he is more of a quippy guy, which I never remember Hal Jordan being a quippy guy.
Yeah, as much.
It's definitely fascinating to see where they're going to go. I do hope they keep Deadpool separate. I hope they acknowledge that, this model, if they're even planning on doing another Deadpool, I don't know. But this model of, straight hard R rating for this comic book movie, there's a big audience for it. And I feel like throwing him in the MCU, they'll have to scale him back quite a bit. I think it'd be fun if he showed up in...
I was going to say, I wouldn't mind cameos.
I wouldn't mind him.
Just kind of interrupt some sort of scene and then leave,
Long as they don't bring Gwenpool into it. That would totally wreck everything. It would make a good cartoon, though.
I don't know what that is.
It's sort of a parody off of Deadpool. That's her only power. She's someone from like the real world who goes into the comic book world, and her only power is she knows everything about the comic book world. But for some reason she goes by, I think it was a hard parody in the beginning, but then she got enough fans that people started giving her superpowers. But that's comic book world. We're talking about the Marvel Cinematic, not comic book. The C does not stand for comic book. My wife actually is like, you think you got this wrong? The MCU stands for Marvel Cinematic, not Marvel comic book. I'm like, God, why are you bringing up issues you know nothing about? She's generally smart, but on the matter of geek stuff, I have her beat in knowledge.
It'd be cool if like Deadpool showed up in the Spider-Man movie and like he keeps getting bleeped. And he's like, exactly, yeah.
Like,
what the bleep? Like, who's doing that? Oh, I forgot this was PG-13. I'll go back to my movie.
Yeah.
That would be a nice little kick. Like, if these bleeping guys, I'm just gonna get. I need a Deadpool 3, guys. Okay, make it happen.
Which one of these are you most excited about, and which of these are you least excited about? I'll start. Oh, go ahead.
I already said it several times. Doctor Strange has the most potential out of all these movies. Only if they pull it off right.
What about least? Which of these properties could you give a shit about?
The new Thor movie.
Huh.
Natalie Portman, I do not respect her as an actress or
damn! Shots fired.
What?
Why? Why don't you respect her as an actress? Didn't you see Black Swan?
Huh?
Didn't you see Black Swan? She was good in that, actually.
No one did.
It was a good flick.
Be honest, you were just watching it to try to see her naked.
Well, I was watching it to try to see my ex-girlfriend naked, but the lesbian scene between Natalie Portman and Mila Kunis was an added bonus. So
yeah. Well, maybe it is worth watching.
It was! I mean, honestly, the plot was good as well acted, but that fucking lesbian sex scene, man.
Nah.
I know what you want me to say, guys. I know what you want me to say, okay?
There's something called Pornhub and deepfakes now, so I'm sure they could recreate it much better, Mike. But I guess I'll let you other guys, Bill, I guess, since it's Mike's question, he should answer last.
I could stand to see another Spider-Man, I feel like they haven't fully developed the character, and the way they ended the second one kind of had me excited to see the third. It's between that and the Guardians of the Galaxy with Thor. Those are the two I'm probably most excited about seeing. The rest of them, Doctor Strange, okay, but probably between those two for most excited to see. I don't really know anything about like the Defenders or the other one, so.
Defenders or Immortals or some other weird group title that never had a real big following in comic books.
Yeah, so, I mean, I don't know. Probably I'm not too excited about watching those either.
Not excited if they make a new Warriors with Safe Space and Snowflake. Sorry, I shouldn't have brought it up. Mike, what's your least favorite, Bill? Least excited about?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They could be good. I'm not super excited for them to start a whole new thing. A whole new movie series or whatever. Yeah.
More lore to the MCU that is just gonna go in the garbage probably for most movies.
Yeah, sometimes when they get these I don't know, secondary characters and then try to piece them together. I mean, not a lot of people knew about the Guardians and it worked out, so I don't know. It could be good.
So, Mike, depending on your taste, I'm thinking you're most excited about Black Widow.
Well, I am interested to see if they make an actual good espionage movie through Black Widow. I've read nothing about it, but I can pretty much guarantee that I can guess what the plot is. So I don't know. I'll tell you this. Looking through this list, I think the only ones that I'll make an effort to see in the theater are Doctor Strange, because I think visually it's going to be really good, and probably Blade. I think I'm most excited about, that said, Guardians 3, just because I am hoping they bring back some of that magic that they had from Guardians 1, which I thought they lost a little bit. But I don't think I'll see that in theater. I'll probably just wait until it comes on streaming, just because I don't know. I don't think I'm going to miss anything. I'll just wait the 2 months or whatever it is. But Doctor Strange, I think I do want to see in the theater. The Eternals, I think, is my least anticipated one of these, just because what the fuck are the Eternals? I guess they're gods and whatever kind of crazy shenanigans they get into. And like you were saying, because of the success of Guardians, it does feel like they're just grabbing any obscure property they have, rattling around in the filing cabinet and just, okay, you get a multi-million-dollar movie deal. You get a multi-million-dollar movie deal. Just trying to throw everything to the wall and see what sticks.
And do they have Fantastic Four and Silver Surfer? I mean, as much as we like to knock on the MCU of bringing out obscure titles, they probably could do like a decent Fantastic Four, because none of the Fantastic Four movies interested me at all. Same thing, I think they had a Silver Surfer crossover with the Fantastic Four. None of those movies did good, and I did not enjoy any of them. But the actual Fantastic Four series has potential, I think.
Yeah, I always thought the characters were kind of cool. I was ready to like the Miles Teller Fantastic Four, but it just didn't do it for me. I didn't mind the tone that they were going for, but it just wasn't super cohesive. So I agree. I think doing at least again, I'm not a huge fan of the Fantastic Four in general, but they do deserve at least one well put together movie, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know. MCU, I'm kind of over it, and I feel like a lot of people are kind of feeling the same.
Yeah. To be honest, I really did think they were going to kind of end it with Endgame. I thought there was going to be 2 or 3 other films to just kind of round it out, and then they were just going to kind of phase it out and let it die. Because I knew that there was going to be another, Guardians of the Galaxy because of the ending. I knew there was going to be another Spider-Man and probably another Black Panther. But I thought after that, they're just going to phase it out. But then they have all these other films listed, and I was like, well.
And the TV shows, I guess Daredevil was okay in terms of Marvel TV shows. I don't think I watched any of the other ones.
I like Jessica Jones and Luke Cage. Iron Fist can go jump. That was just, I knew it sounded bad, and I tried to watch it. It reminded me as badly as some of those CW DC stories. I couldn't get into any of those either. I think I got through 3 episodes of Flash and 2 episodes of Arrow. I don't know. I think Smallville, I watched that whole first season, then I was like, expecting it to get better. CW, sorry, is the WB or CW or whatever the fuck that network's become?
Yeah, CW.
Yeah, superheroes are just hard to do, and they should be happy that they had such a good run and they've become so big, but fatigue, it's just bound to happen. I'm sure it even happens with Star Trek back in the day. That hype train was massive. But of course, the business model is much different nowadays. I think, what are we in, a 24-hour news cycle?
Mm-hmm.
MCU should be happy it had such a long time to spend in the spotlight.
Yeah, and I think, I'm sure the movies will be successful, at least, the next crop of them. Um, and I think it's no, incident that they kick the year off with the essentially a spin-off movie from the Avengers in Black Widow, and then they have kind of a more risky property in Shang-Chi. Just risky because no one knows who that is really. And then, and then the end of the year you bring it back with um Doctor Strange. So, I think they are hedging their bets a little bit. And they just have so much money now. They can afford all of these could be unsuccessful at this point and they'll be fine, I think. And I could do like 2 a year. I think that would be reasonable, just don't shove them down my throat. You got to buy me a couple of drinks first, if you're going to do all that.
I mean, what sort of big event can they build up to this time? As it's been theorized, the multiverse crossover event's the only thing they can pull off. Now it'd take at least 5-10 years to set up. And as we all mentioned, theaters might be a losing business model today. I'm not going to make a hard bet on that, but this recent
is this going to
quarantine...
Is this going to be them building up to another, like, big boss a la Thanos, or is this just going to be serialized comic book movies from all around the universe?
I think if the numbers are right, they would try in the next 6 to 10 years, they would try to do another in-game event. Personally, I think if they had some collaboration, however you say that fucking word I can't say right now, with DC and got some decent, if they sort of worked together with the studios doing DC and had some crossover appeal, I think that would be their best bet, especially in the multiverse scenario. That would probably be an epic. Imagine 2013 DC superheroes, if the DC builds up their superhero universe anywhat well with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. That would be epic, but probably a pipe dream.
Yeah, no, I thought about that as well when we were talking earlier. And good. I do want to see like Green Lantern, Captain Marvel interact since they're both space cops,
Yeah, didn't you feel stunned, sort of slighted that they did not have your favorite Green Lantern in the Justice League movie, Mike? Did that sort of make you a little irritated?
As a result, I didn't go to see it. I wouldn't say I was boycotting it. I would have gone to see it if they had Green Lantern. But yeah, no, I was a little surprised. I mean, I get it. You can't have all the fucking characters, but I think he was one of the original
Aquaman over Green Lantern.
Yeah, that almost seems like it was a bet. Like, oh, I bet you I can make a successful Iron Man or Aquaman iteration. Nuh-uh. Uh-huh. Get Momoa on the phone.
Yeah, I think Aquaman and Wonder Woman were the only two critical successes out of the DC movies.
Could have kept it at just Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman. Call that like Original Justice or something like that. And I would have gone to see that movie, but I don't give a shit about the Flash. The character or the TV show. I don't give a shit about Cyborg. I really don't give a shit about
the token black character.
Aquaman.
They have to have a token black character.
Green Lantern in certain
could do Jon Stewart.
Yeah.
Oh, Jon Stewart. They could have pulled that off instead of Cyborg. I agree with that. But John Stewart was probably the most boring out of all the 3 Green Lanterns I'm familiar with.
Yeah, he was kind of vanilla. He was a military guy, but he got the job done. I would still support.
I mean, he
John
was a
Stewart.
good character. He was just the most boring. Hal
Compared to
Jordan
the
was
other-
at least tense and
Kind of broody.
rather righteous. John Stewart was more of a military man from what I felt. Hal Jordan was at least, a little wild, test pilot, or aircraft pilot at least. Sorry, I'm probably mixing them up with other. Test pilot is a common scenario in these things.
Yeah, because then that's how you get to something goes
Superpowers.
terribly wrong, and they get exactly.
It's a common trope.
I wonder if the tone of these movies is going to grow kind of with the audience, because Iron Man 1 came out in 2008.
Mm-hmm.
So you figure someone that was 12, 13 when that first came out, is now in their mid-20s, late 20s. Yeah, I don't know. I just wonder if they're going to try to adult these up a little more, or at least a couple of them. Maybe Guardians. If you had to pick one of these franchises to put a more adult spin on, I feel like Guardians would have to be it. Am I right?
Yeah, probably so. Or Doctor Strange, one or the other.
Yeah. I mean, Guardians was already kind of adult. I was surprised they got away with that Jackson Pollock joke from the first one. If you would have put a black light in here, it looked like a Jackson Pollock painting, which is a great line. And it's just...
You're relatable, right?
Yeah. And I guess it's one of those educational things, like a kid would then go home and Google Jackson Pollock. Yes, I'll get a little culture and a little chuckle.
So you think there'll be another Avengers movie?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, right when these start taking a shit and not performing as well, they'll bring, they'll toss a bunch of money to the original Avengers and they'll do it again.
Yeah.
I think Tony Stark is already confirmed for being in the next Spider-Man. I think he's going to keep showing up as holograms or some shit.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's right, Peter. I also figured you would come to this warehouse. So I also left you. I've thought of all the contingencies.
Is it going to be a Jarvis Tony Stark hybrid?
I was just about to say, I'm surprised Tony Stark, being who he is, didn't make a AI version of himself.
God, I wonder if they're going to bring Tony Stark's kid into the mix somehow.
Well, at least they don't. Long as they don't bring Ironheart into the mix.
Yeah, I don't know who that is. Ironheart.
It was the new Tony Stark. They actually did 2. One was Prodigy, black girl from Philly or somewhere in the United States. Genius girl who made her own Iron Man suit. And then they also had the alternative. I forget the comic book. It was, Dr. Doom took up the mantle of Iron Man also.
What?
In the comic book world, Dr. Doom became a somewhat good guy and took up the Iron Man. I forget the reasons for that. So, I forget why Tony was gone from the picture, but none of us keep up with the comic books. I follow basically storylines because I find them interesting, but I don't have the cash to buy all these comic books. So.
I feel like comic book writers and companies ran out of ideas 30 years ago.
Yeah.
It's all just been rehashes and crap, to be honest.
What if Thor was a frog?
Yeah, 90% of it is just junk.
Yeah, and I have mixed feelings about the continuity aspect. I get that, throw continuity out the window. I just don't know how I feel about that. On the one hand, I get it. It opens the door to where you can tell all these fun stories with all these characters that you like. But on the other hand, it's you can't think of any other fucking superheroes. When's the last time there's a new superhero other than Safe Space and Snowflake. Yeah.
Yeah. They're like, oh, here's an idea. Let's swap their race and or gender, and that'll make a whole new thing. And I'm like, for God's sakes, write a new character, write a new story.
Yeah.
Oh, there like that Ironheart thing that Brian Chavez. There is America Chavez.
Oh, of course, America Chavez. How could I forget?
Yes.
I don't know who that is.
Yeah.
Sorry, I follow some of these Comics Gate guys, and just to see what comic books are really cringy.
It's just, I don't even care when they do that. It's just lazy writing to me. That, you know what I mean? They're like, oh, we can do pretty much the same storylines over again. We'll just change something slightly about the character. And I'm like, just lazy writing. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm sure it comes down to the dollars and cents, right? They don't want to put any money on a risk because they don't think it'll sell well.
Yeah.
So instead of having an interesting character, just make Batman do something new.
And why can't they ever seem to progress a story beyond like a certain time period? Why do they feel the need to completely reboot a series? I don't know, Spider-Man, Superman, X-Men. They always like get to a certain point, and instead of continuing the storyline, they just completely reboot it. Change the character slightly, and make them younger again. Like one of my favorite things that they ever did with the animated series was Batman Beyond. Like,
sure,
you have Batman actually gets old and passes the torch. Like, I don't understand why they don't do that more with comic book characters.
Well, they did it with Spider-Man, Miles Morales. That was considered one of the best Spider-Man animated things. What, Into the Spider-Verse? That what was on Netflix?
Did they, though? Because that was more of a multiverse thing.
Yeah. It was a good movie,
that wasn't
though.
Like, we got Peter Parker and everything, and then it progressed, and then he, gets old and passes it on to a new Spider-Man. That was just kind of a completely different origin story. That's my point, is they don't ever seem to follow out any of the storylines to the point where they add new characters or pass any torches or continue to write them as an older character. Which would be interesting. Like, what happens when comic book heroes start to age? Like, do they change their role in what they, in fighting, these big threats to the Earth and that kind? You know what I mean? Like, yeah. But they don't ever get to that point. They always just reboot it with a new character or with a slightly different origin story. Ultimate Spider-Man or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think the comic books have covered that a little bit. Old Captain America, right? Was a thing for a while. Old Man Logan, I know, was a thing. Kind of inspired the movie.
Which I think is interesting. Cool.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah.
There's a lot I liked in Logan, and part of it was just seeing how, this practically immortal mutant that we've all come to love is dealing with being slowly poisoned, and what are his priorities now, and
Yeah. Although I think they could have fleshed that out a lot more than they did. It's kind of hard to have everything accelerated into that one movie where you're just like, holy crap, what the hell's going on,
Yeah, you were kind of piecing together, okay, a bunch of the X-Men are dead, and Charles went crazy that one time and accidentally killed a bunch of people, and yes, that's true. So it's interesting. I would not mind if that's where, I'm sure they'll still be making these by the time we turn 40.
Probably.
So, I would love to see older Peter Quill traveling around the galaxy and seeing what kind of shenanigans he gets into.
Yeah, there you go. Have him be Cyclops' father instead of that other dude or whatever.
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we're going to get new superheroes, I don't think it's going to be in comic books. Movies probably where the new superheroes need to spawn from. But not Spawn. Todd McFarlane, he's okay, but that Spawn has never done well.
I agree with that.
So it sounds like we are just over the MCU at this point, and we're, just wait and see kind of
rather heartfelt and painful podcast. We all want to talk about the MCU. Let's take some time to remember the good times. when that Iron Man first put on that suit made out of pretty much rubbish. He burst into the scene and caused a firestorm that swept till the end of the universe when Thanos snapped half the universe away. I mean,
I won't sing the whole song,
so
so don't
focused on the future, and it looks so bleak. Guys, remember the good times.
Yeah, remember the good times. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think Endgame lived up to the hype? I mean, they were building it up for almost a decade.
I'm sorry to say this, I don't think it really did. Time travel is the most laziest plot device ever. It was a good movie, mind you, but I think they were stuck in a corner. They wrote themselves in a corner, and time travel was the only way out. Brilliant movie. The setup, the cinematography, the acting, everything was good, but I think the writers wrote themselves in a corner, and they did the best they could. The writing was still good for that movie, but as I said, time travel, poor man. I'm the writer of this group, right? That's the stereotype you guys want to push upon me.
Oh, hey, no, you gave that one to yourself.
Absolutely.
No,
Absolutely, you did.
You were like, I'm the writer and no one else.
Yes.
No, that was Dave.
What are you talking about? No,
that's
you for years.
Yeah.
Off air, have built that.
Yeah.
Each person has their little role that they have to fill.
Or Brian's universe comes crashing down.
Okay.
BCU.
Brian's Cinematic Universe. What were we talking about? Oh, yeah. Did Endgame live up to the hype? I agree with Brian. I agree with writer Brian. It is very lazy. Oh, no. Time travel. It's fine. Time travel and alternate universes. It's all fine. But that's kind of what you expected of a comic book movie, in my opinion. I think the one thing that they almost did, which I think... So death has really not meant anything in the Marvel Cinematic Universe since day one, right?
Mm-hmm.
And... obviously, they never would have done it, but I think Tony Stark should have died in that ship before the movie even started. Because I guess he was the only one that died, really, right? Captain America got old. Tony Stark died. Black Widow died, yeah. I don't feel like that's enough because I feel like they were trying to drive home that, death does mean something in this universe. People do die. It happens, you know?
There's a few. I mean, Quicksilver dies.
Yeah, I forgot about Quicksilver.
Yeah, I mean, but it's few and far between. As far as the superhero characters dying.
Beyond that, I thought it lived up to the hype. I mean, I wasn't knee-deep in the hype train anyway. Mm-hmm. So, coming at it to maybe a little bit more than a casual fan is kind of where I'd classify myself, but just a little bit, not a super fan. It satisfied me, honestly.
Yeah.
I was satisfied.
Did you have a smoke afterwards, Mike?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. What about, so Brian, did it live up to the hype for you, Bill?
I'm somewhere probably in between. It was okay. Could have been better. I'm not a big fan of the time travel plot device in superhero movies anyway, because again, you get into the why don't they use that to just fix things from the beginning, instead of trying to always come back to the present with something to fight. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It's kind of the like, would you kill Hitler as a baby kind of thing, you know?
Right.
So I feel like they could have done something to stop Thanos in the past if they were going to use time travel. I don't necessarily hate it as a device to bring back a character. I knew that was going to happen, but I don't know. There were parts that I really liked, and then there was parts I thought they were trying a bit too hard. You know.
Yeah.
So, I think it was satisfactory. I was satisfied watching it. You know, it was a good film. There were parts that could have been better, and they could have done without a lot of the plot holes they ended up with. Especially having 10 years to orchestrate it. But that's a lot of films, I guess, to tie together, you know. That had to been kind of a pain to know that each film that was written, you had to keep this upcoming Avengers moment in mind. You know what I mean? And I think that's probably part of the reason why, like you're saying, Brian, they kind of wrote themselves into a corner, because they were like, they had so many films tying in that they're like, well, we can't really do this, or else we kind of, retcon like something from one of the other films, So, I don't know. But yeah, I think overall it was all right. It was good.
I like it.
And the Tony Stark scenes, man, I was upset to see Iron Man go, but I don't think you can get much more heartfelt than that to write a character out of a movie or out of a series.
Yeah, I'd agree. They did handle him dying pretty well, I thought.
Yeah.
Well, does anyone have any final words before we close this Yachtnich out?
No. That pretty much covers it from my end.
Yep. Samesies.
Well, thank you for joining us for this And Go podcast on the MCU, where it's going, what we think about it, and just general stuff. Dislike or not, leave the comments of how wrong and how superhero movies will have a reign for 1,000 years into the future. Bye.